Good evening, you're watching World News Tonight. I'm Adam Yasser. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is in Washington to press President Donald Trump to offer tangible security guarantees for Ukraine as part of a potential peace deal. More on that in just a moment, but first, tonight's headlines. Russian and US diplomats hold talks in Turkey about restoring bilateral ties. The European Union pledges a firm response to President Trump's tariff threats. Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman, who portrayed a famous Polish general in A Bridge Too Far, has passed away. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is visiting the White House on a diplomatic mission to persuade Donald Trump to offer security guarantees to Ukraine. The meeting takes place against the backdrop of potential peace negotiations, which threaten to put the transatlantic relationship to a test. Sonia Agata-Bishon reports.
The British PM is in the United States, meeting with President Donald Trump, with Keir Starmer expressing his view that a lasting peace in Ukraine is only possible with U.S. involvement. Security is likely a key part of the discussion.
But there must be a U.S. backstop, because a U.S. security guarantee is the only way to effectively deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again.
Prime Minister of Great Britain said he's ready to send boots on the ground if America will be part of actually ensuring Britain some sort of security if Britain sends boots. The same was coming from France.
President Trump has said there will be no American troops in Ukraine, but in an interview with TVP World, the former NATO Secretary General noted there are other ways of providing security guarantees.
You can provide an American backup, an American security guarantee without deploying American troops on the ground, namely, as you mentioned, a nuclear backstop, but also more conventional backstops like air protection and other kinds of protection and intelligence sharing.
The meeting takes place as the U.S. retreats from its security commitments to Kiev and Europe as a whole, crystallizing Starmer's possible mission objective.
We sometimes think we're equal partners, but we're really not. They're much bigger, richer, stronger, more important than we are. So Starmer's job is to try and maybe flatter or charm Trump into doing the right thing on Ukraine.
Starmer is not the first leader to recently meet with Trump, joining calls for America to reassess its position towards Europe. Previously, the French president challenged Trump's stances.
Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money, to be clear.
Despite a tense political climate, Starmer has acknowledged the significance of UK's partnership with the US.
There is no more important relationship for the United Kingdom in defence, in security, in trade, in tech, in finance, and so much more.
President Trump, can you get a peace deal done in Ukraine?
Starmer's meeting at the White House is also expected to address defense spending, tech policy, and Trump's proposed tariffs.
Experts are warning that Washington's reset with Moscow has started with unnecessary concessions. The comments come after a second face-to-face meeting between US and Russian diplomats in Turkey, as John Todd reports now.
The Kremlin's relentless war against Ukraine rages on, with rescue workers carrying corpses, the victims of a Russian strike on the Donetsk region. Hours later, American diplomats hosted Russian representatives at the US consulate compound in Istanbul. It's a test of Washington and Moscow's capacity to reset relations. Experts caution, though, that the Kremlin has long proved to be an unreliable partner.
Here, Russia is very masterfully in basically faking the peace and defrauding and manipulating with their promises, promising a lot, not then delivering. They just promise to violate the promise. We know what Russia is.
Talks in Turkey follow a meeting last week between US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. These were aimed at finding an end to the conflict in Ukraine and restoring US-Russian relations. Those discussions came after Donald Trump called his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, as the US president reversed his predecessor Joe Biden and the West's policy of ostracism. Experts say America has made a basic mistake, offering concessions, such as ruling out Ukraine's future NATO membership at the start of talks with Russia.
I'm astonished by those statements from the American side, because if you give concessions to the Russians even before negotiations have started, then you weaken your own negotiation position. You have to negotiate from a position of strength.
On Thursday, Putin told an audience of FSB security service agents that the 6 hours of talks in Turkey inspired hope.
First contacts with the new US administration give certain hopes. There is mutual determination to work at the restoration of relations between the two countries.
He warned the West against trying to sabotage a potential reset with the US, saying Moscow would use its diplomats and intelligence services to thwart such efforts.
Russia is going to walk away with some advantages, and the Americans are ready to give that to them, and even much more, even more than they would have to. Because Trump is in such a rush. I mean, that's the basic mistake right now, is the haste with which Trump wants to pull off a ceasefire and then a peace deal. And Putin recognizes this desire for a fast deal, and he's making the most of it.
President Volodymyr Zelensky met Irish Prime Minister Michel Martin during a brief stop in Ireland. He's on his way to a key meeting with Donald Trump in Washington to sign the Ukraine minerals deal, and where security guarantees and the rapid thaw in US-Russia relations will likely be high on the agenda.
The European Commission, as well as Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, have rebuked US President Donald Trump's threats against the European Union, which include slapping 25% tariffs on European goods. The Polish Premier countered Trump's assertion that the bloc was created to screw the United States. EU correspondent Angela Skujins reports from Brussels.
What is going to prevent an escalating trade war between the US and the EU from boiling over? This is the billion-euro question here in Brussels. It comes off the back of US President Donald Trump announcing from the White House on Wednesday that he would impose 25% tariffs on all imported goods. He didn't specify the EU here, but he mentioned the European Union as part of a larger missive. He said that the EU was formed to screw over the US, but these comments have not gone unanswered. The European Commission rejected this assertion, saying this is not why the European Union was founded. They also said that the executive would retaliate if that US president was serious about imposing those measures. Here's what a European Commission spokesperson had to say from Brussels today off the back of a question from a reporter about the potential implications of those tariffs.
Been preparing for over a year for potential outcomes such as the one that you're describing, and yeah, of course we've been analysing it from every direction, and we're prepared for all outcomes, even though, as we have said, we're trying to avoid the worst outcomes.
But this criticism wasn't singular. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk took to social media early Thursday morning, posting a statement. He said the European Union was founded on a foundation of friendship that spreads across the Atlantic to the US. These are quite sharp comments from the Polish Prime Minister. Tusk is appearing to walk a tightrope here. The US is the largest investor in Poland outside of EU member states, but we will know more about how the European Union is expected to react to this sweeping tariff announcement. We've heard from the White House on Thursday that all tariffs will be legislated on the 1st of April. It comes off the back of a report expected to be handed down, analysing all of the US trading relationships. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
Hundreds of Russian drones and missiles have been terrorizing Ukrainian civilians almost every day since Moscow launched its full-scale invasion. The Witches of Bucha are brave women who protect the capital Kyiv by shooting them down. Our correspondent Don Arleth spoke to them.
Night after night after night. Since we've arrived in Ukraine, Russia has launched over 1,000 drone attacks, many targeting the capital. So we went out with a special unit attached to the 114th Territorial Brigade. But this one is different. Like none other, it's made up of women who have a particular motivation for protecting the skies. Meet the Witches of Bucha.
We experienced such terror in Bucha. When I was fleeing from Bucha, Valentina was escaping from Nemyshayev. These cities were under occupation. We saw with our own eyes what the Russian occupiers were doing on our land to our people. We felt the urge to be useful in defending our country. In the beginning, we were weaving camouflage nets, we were helping in different ways. And then the training for shooting down Shahed started. We didn't hesitate. We joined immediately.
The most difficult part of my job is to save everybody's lives and to shoot the drone, of course, because it has it is really fast, and it takes like a few seconds to shoot it. In any case, if I will make a wrong command and I will say to shoot this drone, it probably can fall down on our position and for my team, so my job is to save all of them, their lives.
So tell me about the group that you're with. A lot of women are also here shooting down drones along the, keeping Kyiv safe. Can you tell us a bit about this?
A lot of women want to join us, and a lot of women already joined us because, in our opinion, when our men's on the front line, we have to save their families and protect their children and all of people we know, our families and our friends.
How long have you been doing this, if I may ask?
From first day when the war witches began to work. I was the first one.
Suddenly, we see air defense working in the distance, and they think that they have a target and they try to shoot it down. It's too far away, and now is the responsibility of another unit. There are several lines of defense around the capital, all of which work as a team. And thanks to soldiers like these, the residents of Kyiv can feel a lot safer from the constant barrage of Russian attacks. Reporting from near the Ukrainian capital, Don Arleth, TVP World.
Iconic Oscar-winning American actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Akarava have been found dead at their home in New Mexico. The investigation into the cause of death is still ongoing. However, authorities do not believe that the foul play was a factor. Hackman was 95 and his wife 63.
Doesn't matter what it was. When one man says to another, I know what, let's do today, let's play the war game.
Gene Hackman's role in Richard Attenborough's A Bridge Too Far won him admiration among Polish fans. In this film, considered by many a landmark of cinema, which depicts World War II's Operation Market Garden, Hackman portrayed Major General Stanisław Sosabowski, the commander of the Polish 1st Independent Parachute Brigade. Hackman's illustrious career spanned over 6 decades, during which he starred in over 70 films and won 2 Academy Awards for his roles in The French Connection and Unforgiven. Having found Hackman and Arakawa's bodies, local officials confirmed the news that the couple had died along with their dog. As stated by the Santa Fe sheriff, Adam Mendoza, there was no immediate indication of foul play, but he did not provide a cause of death or time when the couple might have died.
A week before the Christian Lent, Poles gorge on pączki, or jam-filled donuts, in a tradition called Fat Thursday. Bakeries can barely cope as people queue for hours to get their hands on the delicacy. Alex Sumliński has more on this annual indulgence.
Fat Thursday, this is when Poles in the country, but also all around the world, eat pączki on this day. Now, what is a pączek? Some people compare it to a donut, but you want to be careful with that comparison because a pączek is not exactly a donut. It is a round pastry, which is usually filled with fruit or rose jam and will have frosting on top or some orange peel. Take a listen to what Polish people here in Warsaw say is the best pączek, according to them.
Icing has to be on the top of it, and it's important for the filling to be tasty. So those with rose jam or with a delicate rose-flavored filling meet my expectations.
I think I'm a traditionalist in this regard, so my favorite are those with a multi-fruit jam. I like the taste of those pączki the most.
4.5 up to 5 hours. That is the approximate waiting time here in front of this particular bakery in the Wola district of Poland's capital.
I want to eat like 10 pączki today. Yeah, I'm waiting for 3 hours. Yeah, exactly more than 3 hours, yes.
The Zagoździński Confectionery Workshop celebrates its centenary this year. This is where you can still buy homemade donuts fried in lard and covered with homemade icing.
This place has a storied tradition. Today marks 100 years in business for them, and they have a reputation. If you take a look at customer reviews, they often come recommended.
Fat Thursday mainly revolves around eating as many Polish donuts as possible, all in the name of good luck. The holiday is on the last Thursday prior to Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent. It is such an ingrained part of Polish culture that even a centenary exhibition for the confectionery displays the famous painting Lady with an Ermine, holding a pączek instead of the original animal.
Valentine's Day is great, but it's not Polish all the way. Fat Thursday is our holiday. Our Polish pączek is eaten on Fat Thursday.
So whether you are going to enjoy a pączek, because that's how in Polish we say one pączek, or more pączki, that is up to you. I'm not going to get into the language details of it, because what you want to do on Fat Thursday is enjoy this pastry. I have to say, it's delicious. So make sure to get your pączek fix on Fat Thursday. For TVP World from Warsaw, I'm Alex Sumlinsky.
Russia and the United States held a new round of talks on Thursday. While officially peace in Ukraine was not on the agenda, European leaders are concerned that President Donald Trump is offering too many concessions to Vladimir Putin. To discuss the latest developments, I'm joined by Ian Brzeziński, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and a former US Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. Hello, Ian. It's great to have you with us again.
Well, good evening. It's good to be back.
A lot is going on, lots of statements, visits, posts on social media, falsehoods about who started the war, as if we didn't know it was Russia. So please help us, cut through this noise and tell us what is the state of play.
Well, the state of play is evolving. I mean, no one's quite confident that even Trump himself knows exactly what his strategy is. And you've been mentioning these different discussions the administration's been having with the Russians. It's a bit disconcerting because we should never violate the principle of talking about Ukraine without Ukraine. And that, in a way, has been happening. But at the same time, Kellogg has been the president's special representative for the Russia-Ukraine war, has been in Europe and has been in Kiev. That helps mitigate a little bit of that concern. We have negotiations going on a critical minerals agreement. And we have Zelensky visiting Washington, perhaps arriving tonight, but meeting with Trump tomorrow. And perhaps that'll mitigate these concerns that that Washington has been talking about Ukraine without Ukraine. But we'll see.
President Trump just reiterated just moments ago that NATO membership for Ukraine is off the table. Is he conceding another point, or is this in reality inevitable given the state of affairs?
Well, first of all, it's not inevitable. It may be Trump's view, and if he sticks with that view as Biden did, it certainly inhibits Ukraine's ability to join the alliance, and we'll see what happens in the next administration. But it is a somewhat surprising and unhelpful concession to give to Russia right away that sort of gift. And it's a concession that I believe only emboldens Putin, gives Putin confidence that he can get his way. And that's not the right way to start a negotiation, particularly against a leader like Putin who's determined to suborn Ukraine.
Right. But the other argument is that what Trump is trying to achieve is to reel Putin in, put him at the table, and once he starts negotiating, later on it will be harder for him to break the deal or walk away from it or basically, continue the war.
Well, that kind of rests on an assumption that Putin's a good guy. He can be trusted and can be trusted to live up to his agreements. I think when you approach someone like Putin and you try and woo him with praise, woo him with concessions, he tends to pocket them and only demand more. I think a very different approach ought to be taken, which is to think like a Soviet. And, Putin is an old Soviet KGB agent. He thinks in terms of the situation on the ground. You need to change the correlation of forces in Putin's eyes, leverage our overmatching military and economic power, squeeze the Russians economically, beef up Ukraine's military capability, demonstrate a readiness to fight for our interests. That causes Putin to change his perception of the correlation of forces, and is more likely to have Putin then come to the United States, come to Europe, come to Ukraine seeking negotiations. That should be the strategy.
Right. In our last conversation, you said the Europeans must do their part and provide a muscular force to guarantee peace in Ukraine. If they do that, the US will do its part. How does it look now?
Well, we're in the middle of that negotiation right now. I mean, this week we've had Macron come to Washington. UK Prime Minister came to Washington just yesterday. President Duda was at the CPAC talking to Trump last weekend. And it seems that the Europeans are actually trying to kind of put together some sort of deterrent force, which I think is an important step forward. But it has to be a robust deterrent force. It has to be backed also by determination of the Europeans to really ratchet up economic sanctions, to work with the United States to really create some opposition with Russia to this war. That's the kind of package that, one, will change Putin's view of what he can achieve, and two, is the kind of package that actually might capture Trump's willingness to be part of a winning solution to this war in Ukraine.
Right, but at the same time, the US administration is sort of signaling that they want to lift sanctions on Russia. So how can you have Europeans maintaining their sanctions or even, increasing sanctions while the US would drop them? That doesn't make any sense.
It makes sense if you're trying to convince Trump to do what's right, which is to increase sanctions, not reduce sanctions, to increase military pressure on Russia, not reduce pressure on Russia, to take away concessions rather than to give them. One of the problems that Europe has in this is that Trump, like Putin, doesn't believe it's fully committed to enabling Ukraine to win this war, to defeat this Russian aggression. Europe has to demonstrate that it's willing to do that. Only when after it's done that can you be hopeful. I can't guarantee it, but you can be hopeful that Trump will join in that effort and be part of the victory rather than wrapping himself in what would be a terrible defeat of Ukraine.
We have observed a number of European leaders talking the right kind of language, speaking the right kind of language these days on this particular issue. We see, as you rightly pointed out, Macron and now Keir Starmer in Washington. Have they managed to obtain any kind of concession from President Trump on either backstopping European security or committing to peace guarantees or security guarantees for Ukraine? Did you get any sense during these visits?
I haven't gotten the progress that we would like to see, but it's interesting that Trump hasn't fully ruled that off the table, some sort of backstopping role. It's clear he wants the Europeans to carry the preponderance of the weight of such attacks. And I got to say, we're in a position now where Trump's going to do one of three things. He's either going to unilaterally impose an unjust and unstable peace on Ukraine, or he's going to walk away from this on the assumption that basically this invasion of Ukraine is really a European concern, not a U.S. concern. one not worth his political capital. Or third, and I'll go out on a limb, he'll do the un-Biden thing. He'll do something decisive to enable Ukraine to win. If Europe doesn't put this aggressive offer on the table to step up sanctions, to help create political opposition within Russia, to carry the weight of an effective deterrent force, you're going to get you're not going to get the third option. You're going to get the first two options. So Europe is moving in the right direction in this regard, and that offer, that signal of determination, that willingness to stand strong for the first time in 11 years is critical to the outcome we all desire over Ukraine.
Right. And how about the minerals deal that may be signed this week in Washington when President Zelensky is there? Is it likely to include some sort of implicit, at least, security guarantee?
I would like it to include a security guarantee, and not an implicit one, but a direct one. But I don't think we're really heading that way. I still think the agreement is not a bad idea. I mean, it's originally a Ukrainian idea, and it's meant to kind of leverage Ukraine's economic potentials to help finance weapons procurement, reconstruction, and economic development. There's certainly merit also in deepening the U.S.-Ukraine economic relationship. But I got to say, without a credible transatlantic security guarantee, I don't see how this agreement actually yields the outcomes that's desired. Because who's going to invest in these projects if Ukraine is subject to imminent bombardment from Russia?
But if you say that,
guarantees are ultimately what will make this work.
Right. But what you're saying is that if there is any hope on the part of the U.S. administration to do business with Russia, they have to provide security for Ukraine.
To do business with Russia? I'm not sure.
To do business with Russia and to do business with Ukraine. I mean, both seem to be on the table.
Well, doing business with Russia shouldn't be on the table until Russia removes itself from Ukrainian territory.
But we had Mr. Vitkov talking about
war crimes and in reparations for what it's done.
But we heard Mr. Vitkov talking about this, the special envoy for Mr. Trump.
Yeah. Well, if that's the way the U.S. government goes, and if that's the outcome that the U.S. imposes on this war, it will be a win for Russia and ultimately an embarrassment for Trump. He will look extremely weak.
Right. In Europe, speaking of the question of deterrence and U.S. commitment to transatlantic security and NATO effectively, in Europe, there is an increasing talk about the need to boost the nuclear deterrent beyond what the UK and France have. So does that make sense? And could this be another coalition of the willing, if you will?
I think when it comes down to deterring war against Russia, in the absence of an American security commitment, nuclear weapons is not the urgent need. Europe, in a way, has a nuclear deterrent in the form of, the French and British arsenals. What Europe needs is a far more robust conventional posture. Poland stands among those who are doing the right things, but it needs to be matched by the Germans, by the French, by the Italians, and others. That robust conventional posture is the best way for military security in Europe in the absence of an American security guarantee, which, by the way, I don't think is imminently about to dissipate. I'm among those who are concerned about where Trump is leading us, but I'm not ready to conclude that it's a preordained fact that it's about to end. In fact, how we end this war in Ukraine will probably largely shape the future of the transatlantic security relationship.
Ian, thank you very much for your comments tonight.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Thank you for watching World News Tonight. Stay with us for more news and analysis.